guys, it is Tristan with Nerdette's Newsstand, and today is Batman Day. We are going to take a look at Batman throughout all different kinds of media. I'm going to give you the best of the best when it comes to Batman. I'm going to talk comic, video games, live action, animated TV shows, and more. But I did want to let you guys know, on HBO Max today, they released a audio drama, and it seems pretty good so far. It is also on DCFandom.com, the first 3 episodes for free, so there is that. It is interesting. Jeffrey Wright plays Batman. I haven't gotten too much into it, but so far I'm really enjoying it. It reminds me of the old graphic audio. So first, let's talk about TV shows, because I had to add this in there. For Batman Day, for the best TV show, of course, it's going to be the animated series, but I included that in animated also. So I want to talk a little bit about Gotham. Gotham was on Fox for 5 seasons, and it was progressively a better show each and every season. They brought in brand new characters like Fish Mooney, who was a badass, played by Jada Pinkett Smith, and we had awesome characters like Poison Ivy eventually introduced, starting out with Ivy Pepper and getting recast and then recast. And of course, we had Selena Kyle and a lot of great ideas around Batman, because Bruce Wayne in this series was very young. And I liked the idea of the upcoming Batman villains being younger. Also, we've seen Tommy Elliott as a child and, Bruce punching him, and it was fun. But that show is really underrated. It is one of the, if not my favorite TV show ever. I absolutely love it. So I wanted to make sure I include that. So for animated, I included, of course, the animated series. The animated series is always going to be, I think, a little bit older Batman fans' favorite. It is still, though, good if you are younger and want something new and maybe, a little nostalgic. Also, for movies, I have to mention Under the Red Hood. It is such a great, iconic story of Jason Todd, becoming Red Hood, and returning from death in the family. So I wanted to make sure I included that. Now, for live action, this was actually a really hard decision, because I could say the Christopher Nolan trilogy and be done with it. But I had to decide between The Dark Knight and Batman Begins as my personal favorite live action movie. And I had to go with Batman Begins. And I think a lot of that is not necessarily because it was the first in the story, but because we did get to see Ra's al Ghul, even though Liam Neeson, I would say, was well cast, just different. Another race swap we could talk about, but nobody ever does. But even so, I really liked the story of how Scarecrow came about. And I think the Scarecrow casting is what made me pick Batman Begins, because I think it was so well done. And Scarecrow is underutilized, in my opinion, one of my favorite villains. And we're going to talk about him here again in a minute. But I absolutely love Batman Begins. So, more Scarecrow, right? Video games. Absolutely got to pick Arkham Knight. And I know a lot of people are going to go, well, what about Arkham City? No. I love the drone battles. I could probably make a whole video about these couple video games, these 4 video games, right? And I have in the past. But Arkham Knight was always my favorite. For one, of course, I love the Jason Todd storyline. Jason's always going to be my favorite Robin, and he's always going to be a character that I absolutely love. But in this game, not only did you get an amazing Jason Todd storyline, you got a great Barbara storyline. Of course, it was a very weird shipping with Tim, but even so, you got the best version of Batman, I think, that we don't see necessarily in the comics a lot of the times. And I love this version of Bruce. I love the idea of him becoming a nightmare. I love the idea of this Gotham with, you know, kind of very similar to the Magistrate, except for everyone's gone. And we've got, again, Scarecrow attacking. And the Scarecrow within this game was not a Scarecrow that you see necessarily in the comics. Maybe we'll see how Fear State goes. But the Scarecrow in this was a truly terrifying factor. And then, you know, I love the idea of everything within that game, down to the side missions, right? The mission with Nora and Victor Freeze are amazing. I know, yes, I did cry the first time I played that mission. So good. The Most Wanted stuff was really, really good, whether it was the Victor and Nora one or it was the Croc, right? All of them were really good. And the Ra's al Ghul going back to the hospital. So I absolutely love that video game. So we're going to end this out with my favorite comics. And this was really hard. I actually did one specific that I picked, but I had to go through a bunch. Rip. Whatever happened to the Cape Crusader, Neil Gaiman on Batman is a dream, right? Hush. Another great storyline. I've reviewed this and compared it to the movies in the past. Hush was amazing. So amazing, I named my cat after it, right? So, Son of the Demon, another storyline that doesn't get mentioned a lot. But I picked, well, 2. Okay, we'll go with 2. So, Earth 1 is a newer story, right? Earth 1 is done by Jeff Johns, and it is a three-part graphic novel series. It is a different take on Alfred. You have a very, very badass Alfred. And I am going to eventually get to do a whole story breakdown of this. And then we have a different take on Two-Face. And, you know, and I don't want to ruin it because I'm going to go through it later. End up being a completely different person, right? And then the idea that I love is Batman working with Killer Croc, working with Alfred, eventually working with Selina Kyle. I love the way that it was used, the Batman mythos on steroids, kind of, right? And then the other one I kind of picked alongside of Earth 1 would have been for completely different reasons of No Man's Land, because I think it does a really good job of showcasing 2 different sides of Gotham. A side of Gotham without Bruce Wayne. And of course, it is not even in the, United States at that point in No Man's Land. But Batman is removed in the beginning. Bruce Wayne is gone. And then we do eventually see him return. We get to, we get one of the best versions of Cassandra Cain you could ask for. One of the best way to kind of narrate the story or use a framing device of Barbara Gordon. And just exactly what happens. And then, of course, you've got the introduction of Harley Quinn and just how psychotic she is then compared to how they are redeeming her in Stephanie Phillips' current run. And I really love everything about it, whether it's the different faction, you have the Joker gang and the Blue Boys, and you have every single different faction. You have, bringing new life in what happens when you're not part of America. And you bring in new life, and how do you take care of that? How does Leslie Tompkins help an entire city when she's only one person? And I think it's a really interesting dynamic of a storyline that we don't see nowadays because it was such a long story. It was a very long story, but it was definitely something worth reading. And we don't see it taken over like we have Fear State right now. Well, it's a few months, and then we're going to Shadow of the Bat. No Man's Land lasted 3, 4, 5 times as long as these stories last now. They didn't take their time. They didn't rush things. And I think that's what made those stories truly special. So make sure you check those out. Other than that, let me know your favorite Batman media down below. I could probably keep going. I could talk about Injustice, the comic books, and the video games. I could talk about all of my favorite comics, but I want to know yours. Let me know, of course. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.